in this first English talk of designers, I'm going to ask a question to Bang Borrys about one simple question actually, but it's really being like frequently asked in our group. And what's makes me sad is because people answer it like not serious in answering it. For example, like when I saw many questions about how to become UI designer, some people just answer just googling it because there's so many resources out there, right? When you're googling like how to be a UI UX designer, there's a lot of webinar, a lot of book article out there that you can just like scrolling down and just choose the one you like and just read it, and you maybe suddenly become a UI UX designer. But for me it will be different because actually UI UX is a very wide terms, and on how like what you want to become is really depends on your passion, right? And for example, like UX a big umbrella, and how you want to become in professional level, it really depends on your how you want to specialize in. And from our previous talk in Bahasa, I invited some of our designer in their own expertise. Like Bang Borrys is more expertise in more professional career in UI UX world. They're also freelancer. They're also a studio owner. And today let's talk more about UI UX in more professional level, like how to get into that profession successfully, Bang Borrys. So when people ask to you like how to become like you, Bang Borrys, what do you want to answer?
Okay, first, don't just become me. Be better, much better, 10 times better than me. That should be like the goal. Should be the moonshot. So I also like this quote, Chandika, from Steve Jobs. He says that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward. So with regards to this, what I was gonna say, the point is that I didn't plan to become a UX designer. So I don't have a plan that I someday I'll be leading a design team in big companies, for example. What I just had in mind every time is that I just need to contribute the best to the company, the interest of the company, build the best product, and then along the way, somehow all of these assignments, projects just led me to become a UX designer. So I started career as a software engineer. I was a software engineer, and then at that time we all are engineers, very heavy engineers, because we do not it's not just web, but we do like now we call it full stack. Right? So at that time it's using the C and Java, not JavaScript but Java. So it's really device oriented. And then we were working on a project in London at that time for the transportation, and then there is no designers in the team. And there's only all engineers, all my manager PhD in some very weird field. I don't know, I can't remember the term, computing something. We are all engineers, and then there's no one that had a photo or like graphical editors on their PC at that time, but I had fireworks on my computer. So the manager said, "Okay, you'll be the designer. You are the lead engineers, and you'll become the designer as well." So then I started like learning, trying to find articles about like design, but at that time it's very rare. I got lucky to get a book from. So at the time, my sister was in UK, and then she brought me some 2 books, basically. About Face from Alan Cooper. So at the time, there's no UX. It's called interaction design, just interaction designer. Okay. And then another book is from Bill Mockridge from IDEO. I can't remember, the book is very thick. It's more of like a case study from different designers. So then. So when I read the Bill Mockridge book, I just knew that there are a lot of like very different disciplines in design. There's a service design. There's a John Maeda. They're just like very creative and half technologists, half artists. And then there's an IDEO. who actually worked with Steve Jobs to create the first mouse. So I just knew that and I started like learning, but at the time very limited resource. Started 2006. So I couldn't also like find any course. I think the only that I could find at the time is it's called HFI, Human Factors International. It's very like heavy on disability, I would say. But I didn't have that privilege to get the certification at the time. So I just did based on the project and improvise. I posted some time about like how I actually sketched during that time as an engineer is very very like silo individual. There's no collaboration with others. So from that time, I feel like this is very important part of the product. We are engineers, but we are missing the human aspect of it. Like we don't understand the users. And one of the very striking experience was when we have worked on the prototype. We have worked on like almost 3 to 6 months, and we brought it to London and we tried on the ground, and it just didn't work. So many things that didn't work. For example, like we spent a lot of time in a text to speech, for example, to give notification on incoming train at the London Tube, the London Underground. But then at the platform in London, it's very noisy. You cannot even hear that notification. And in a lot of spots, there's no internet at that time. So our app just didn't work. So okay. I think this could have been avoided if we do something different, right? As an engineer, we didn't know there is this process of design thinking at that time. That can be easily avoided if you just go first there, like we do field research, and then you observe how people interact, how people actually. Can you hear even your own voice? For example, like when you want to develop the text-to-speech, you can easily just make a voice recorder and then just try to say something like, "Oh, train to Baker Street is approaching," and then you try to listen to it. So that can be now I can think a lot of many things to validate the ideas before even build it. But at that time, there's no way. So that's one of the key moments where I feel that it's like very interesting field, and I want to be more expert and learn more about this. And I think I would just get lucky. In many cases, I would say it's just luck for me, because in Telco World, it's very new, the field UX at that time, 2008, 2007, and one of the biggest telco group, it's called Telenor from Norway. They are setting up a UX team in Malaysia. So the director was sent from Norway. She's an expert in human factors and so on. At the time, I think probably quite mature in Europe, starting or even more mature than in Asia. So she's setting up, and I just got lucky again to be interviewed. Somehow, like this headhunter found my profile, even though all my profile is about engineering, but somehow he said that I think you should explore this opportunity. And then I spoke to the lady, the director, and I failed actually the first interview. So she asked, "What's your process in building product?" So I said that we build product first, and then we test with the users once we build.
Right.
And then and then I saw her actually my application form. He like just crush it and then just show it to the trash bin. And I know like I failed in the interview. But then and then after that I called her, sending email saying that I think I'm able to learn, and I just understood that my approach was wrong. It's like what I actually should be the way. But still, like it's not really that smooth, the journey. I was actually got the job, but not as a UX designer first, but as a more a product manager.
Project manager.
So it fits more. But then during that 3 months as a product manager, I learned like crazy about UX design, and I made a very detailed, comprehensive presentation on how actually the experience in that company can be improved. And then the director saw my presentation. I said, I think you can be a UX designer. So that's like the first UX designer title that I got in 2008 or 9.
Wow.
UX designer in a real UX team.
Is that the
But then
still
still, it's very, yeah.
is it already a thing in 2009?
Yeah. That's the
Wow.
first. That's the first. The first UX team. The first UX design team. But
2009.
again, like the maturity is very low at the time, maturity of the
Right.
design. So the fight was more about convincing others the value of UX. Although now people still having that fight, right, about convincing
Right.
getting design to get a seat at the table with others. But at the time, it's very different. It's more of like in the industry wide, trying to like bring the value of design to the organization. Right now, you can just easily point to, like, you can just drop big names, right? You cannot just say, like for example, Gojek now has like 100+ designers. Same for Traveloka and so on, or like even like other companies. So you can just drop big names now easily. But that time, there's no, in the industry itself, design is it's not widely accepted as a key function.
Right.
And then from there, my journey continues more as a UX designer. I came to Singapore, joining startups as a UX designer, and just keep doing design from that time. But I don't have that, like I mentioned, it's more like connecting the dots looking backward. So I know, okay, I got the job at British Telecoms. Actually, it led me to be more conscious of the importance of design. So hence, it led me to the design field. But I don't have that dream of becoming UX designer.
So it's more because of the urgency in the company at the moment. So, Mas Borrys,
it's not for luck.
yeah. So maybe the condition will be different, like what from your career path in the past with the situation nowadays about how mature the UX world in Indonesia, especially because with the fast growing digital company, I think the urgency of having UX and UI designer is growing over time. And when I see like there are so many job vacancy in this field, maybe it will be different with the what you have like in the past. So with nowadays condition and situation, Mas Borrys, with so many resources and so many job vacancies, but also in the same time, there's so many people are so interested into this world. For example, like in the UI UX ID group, there's so many members, maybe like I mean, you're also hundreds of thousands of members who are really interested in the UX world. And it's still this question like how to start become the UI UX designer still appears in the group. So according to you, with nowadays situation, like what set a designer different than the others? Like what's the key of success? Of course, when we're talking about how to be successful in this world, you maybe have to need to be outstanding, like rather than the others. So there still be what is your strategy? What's your advice for people who started and really want to be success in this field nowadays when the UX world is already a little bit mature in Indonesia?
Yeah. Okay. So first, like you need to know yourself. That's very important. Right? So when you ask questions like, how can I start becoming a UX designer, or how can I be a UX designer? The first question that you need to ask is like the why first. Like why do you want to become UX designer? Is that something like you mentioned about passion, right? About the interest. Is it something that you are actually interested in? Because a lot of people actually, when I talk to them more in details, asking why, actually it's not their passion. It's just they're saying that I saw so many job openings and I feel like it's a good opportunity for me to be in that field as well, because there's so many opportunities.
And people say the UX world, UX people paid well in this industry.
Yeah, it was one of the, I would say, well-paid role, right? Yes, so now it's considered as one of the key function in the company. So first, you need to know yourself first, whether it's something that really is your passion, because I think life is too short for you to do things that you don't like. And you can pretty much survive in this world doing, I would say, anything. And of course, anything good and halal, yeah? So but then you can pretty much survive, and you still can pretty much live the life doing anything. So you need to like make sure that you like it first. It's something that you're really passionate about, because UX work is not something that is really, I mean, even if it's like a freelancer, even if it's a consultant, a professional, you need that energy to keeps you going. You know, like competition is very tough. For example, like we have companies that has 100 plus designers. So
Right.
imagine 100 plus designers is always like a pyramid, right? So if you're gonna be managers, you're gonna be fewer managers, be like level director is even smaller, right? So it's like C level is very even like only one C level. Right? So the competition is tough. If you don't have that energy and energy driven by passion, then you're not gonna do well. So that's very important. Know your passion first and your interests. And secondly, this is personally me. Probably other people can have different approach, but for me, uh, uh, when you contribute more to others, then the good things will come to you. So I never aim, for example, okay, I want to be a director or head of design at this in 5 years or something like that. So I always have like, for example, like the goal is always I want to have product that always impact not just at the time probably a few thousands. I want to have product that improve like millions or even like hundreds of millions. Just now, alhamdulillah, I have worked on product that actually impact like hundreds of millions of people.
More than that.
So it's something that I always like aim. So once you have that in mind for me, contribution benefits to others, then you will be like driven to be more, to be better in everything, right? So because you are driven by external factors that is giving contribution. Because if you just like taking yourself as a limit, it's very limited. For example, like I want to be manager. So once you become manager, and so what, and then you just now you have reached manager, then are you going to stop doing things, right? No. But if you say that I want to have a product that impact, improve people's life, there's no limit to it, then you will always like do the best. So that's how actually I grow as a designer. So look, because that's also like, even if you don't have that in mind, in product, you always measure the impact, the metrics. So that's basically the impact to the users, right? So that's how you grow as a designer. So then you will find skills to. So for example, let's say that you have an e-commerce app, and then you say that okay, the metrics is we want to increase the conversion from the discovery page, from home page to shopping cart, and you see the conversion is very low. But you have a clear goals of like want to help users to find the product they love and easily buy the product. So with this in mind, you will start to learn how, for example, how to be better in, for example, visual design. And then you will find also like try to learn how, for example, is there a way for us to influence the decision-making process? Then you start reading about behavioral economics, for example, about how people making decisions. So you are growing by focusing on the impact. And then let's say that, for example, like you say that, okay, I think it's very difficult for users to understand how it works. Then you start reading things about education, because education is something related about how people learn, the learning curve, for example, how people learn about something, how they make it like from knowledge becoming like a habit, and then you learn a lot of things. Then you are growing as a designer. But the focus is on still making a bigger impact to the users through the product. So that's how you can also like how you stand out is, I feel like when you have a very small goal, like I want to become a director, I would say it's very small goal. Then you just gonna limit yourself to that goal, So because, for example, like you're a staff now, you're not a manager, and then you say, okay, now someone asked me to work on extra project, and then you will say that, oh, I'm not a manager, I shouldn't do that. I also like only get paid this much. Then you are limiting yourself, because a lot of times people who actually become a manager, become a director, is someone who actually step up in the career. So you're a staff now, but you are doing manager work. You are a manager now, and you are doing director's work. Even you are not director, and people start seeing you as a potential director, for example. Then you will get the promotion. So it's not the chicken and egg. You need to be that. You need to behave and act as if you're a director first before you become a director. So it's not like you become director first and then you act and behave as your director. That should be like, even if you're like a staff level or like a junior level, you need to act as if you are, for example, the manager. Then people will start seeing you as people who actually contribute more, because people who actually get promotion usually is people who contribute more, work. I would say still work harder is not overrated. It's very important because the quality is always related to the quantity, right? Like the more you practice, the more you, for example, design. I would say, I would say one of my big weaknesses is visual design, which I don't have time to train to practice.
The trends.
But I feel like Chandika, even like all of these designers that is very strong in visual. I'm sure it's not just about being smart, right? It's about also like work hard to practice to become better at visual. So work harder is one of the things that you need to like always have in your approach.
Right. So it's always about the mindset, right? To be successful in this world, you have to be that mindset of the UX designers, and your goal is to really to give solution for people. And when you have that kind of mindset, and of course, like Mas Borrys say, you want to like being like give some value for other people, that's actually also makes you happy. And the way you are happier, and it makes you like have less stress, and you're motivated more to do better work and better. It's really inspiring, Mas Borrys, about that. I really quote that thing.
Stress is probably not. So the more, you know that term, I can remember the peribahasa yang kalau dia apa, like the higher you are, the wind is going to be stronger.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. So the stress will be higher the more you climb up the ladder of, in corporate, for example. Sometimes I miss my time when I was just a senior engineer at British Telecoms, because I can just stay in my cubicle doing my stuff and just thinking about myself and crazy ideas. Right now, it's not, it's a privilege, I would say. It's a very exclusive things. Like now, you need to take care. I need to take care of a lot of things. So this is more stressful, but how you manage is more important. You cannot avoid stress. There's no less stress, I would say. It's more stress, especially if you work on products that affect hundreds of millions of people.
This is another level.
Yeah, but then that's how you manage is very important. So you need to learn how to manage, not to avoid the stress.
Okay, we will talk about that later, how to avoid and manage stress. It's also a very interesting topic to talk about. But I really want to focus more about as people who just started in this field, Mas Borrys, because your condition is because you already in the company, you already get the job. So your main challenge is to how to bring that UX culture into the company. But for people who just started and just about to learn about user experience, having that kind of mindset to really give impact for people, how do you able to do that? I mean, you don't have the job already, you just started just to learn. Do you think that we really need to have that kind of mindset? I mean, just to provide solution, even we are still don't know anything about UX world, and what kind of approach you suggest that have that exact roadmap for people to be a good UX designer who can give impact and give solution for people?
Yeah. So no matter how big or small the scale is, I think you still need to have the mindset. So even though, for example, you are still a students, not even fresh graduate, not even looking for a job, just student. So the key three things in design, in product development, I summarize it into, I call it IKRAR. IKRAR is promise, right? So it's called IKRAR, which is innovation, creation, and iteration.
Okay.
So innovation is about finding the most important problems to solve. So
Okay.
I've seen a lot of very inspiring TED Talk, for example. I remember this example. There's this 14 or 15-year-old boy from Africa, if I'm not mistaken. So the village had this problem where I think lion or the wild beast always came and then just make everything messy. So
Mm.
I think he invented something about, I think I can remember, the light or something. So it turned out he found out that actually the lions were afraid of lights, and not just lights
Mm.
but moving lights.
Okay.
So he created something that around the village that actually made like a moving light or something that
Mm.
actually uh, push the lions and all the
Mm.
wild
Push back.
beasts far away, right?
Mm.
So the important thing is first to be able to identify the problems.
Mm.
In Indonesia, specifically, we are very lucky because Indonesia got so many problems to solve. So you just need to like practice, open your eyes wide,
Mm.
and then observe what problems people are experiencing, but also to make sure that you are solving the most important one because
Mm.
you don't have enough, you don't
Energy.
have much time.
Mm.
You need to find the problem that people find it the most troublesome, for example, or
Mm.
even impact. So their impact is in many ways. It might impact people's income or money,
Mm.
impact people's time, or impact people's life. So this three things can be like your guidance on picking the right problem. Does it
Mm.
impact the income or money? Does it
Mm.
impact the time, or does it impact the life? So if you
Mm.
can have this and observe around you what problems people having, then you can start having that mindset of a maker, which is like a good starting point to become UX designer, observing problems. Because design is not just about solving problems. Design is about identifying problems, the most
Mm.
important problems. That's like a very key because if you are wrongly identify a problem, then the solutions that will follow is going to be wrong as well because the
Mm.
problem is not right. So it needs to start with the right problem. So even your students, you are starting now as a UX designer, you want
Mm.
to start a career,
Mm.
have this mindset of identifying problems. So that's part of the innovation.
Right.
And then going next to the creation, even though you don't have a job, for example,
Mm.
once you identify your problems, then try to make a solution for it.
Mm.
So, and then you will have resource. You can ask people, what's the process in design thinking to solve problems. Then you will learn how to solve the problem. But first, you need to have the problems first.
Mm.
And then you go to the second stage, which is from ICRAR, innovation, creation. Then
Mm.
you start applying creativity techniques. You start applying best practice. You ask people, what's the best way to solve the problems. So the second part is the solving part, which you can always practice even though you don't have a job.
Mm.
And the third one is iteration. Iteration means you are learning from people, how people react, how people interact with the product or solutions, and what can be improved.
Mm.
This iteration seems like a simple thing, just improve product, but actually it has a very deep meaning, which is become a lifelong learner.
Mm.
So you keep learning about anything, about your product, about your users, about the society, about your problems in your, I don't know, neighborhood, your province, your city, right?
Mm.
And then you keep learning, iterate, improve the product, improve probably your problem definition, and then that goes into that cycle. So keep
Mm.
innovating, creating, and iterating.
Mm.
So you can
Awesome.
start now. Actually, you can start now. After this talk, you can just go outside, do a walk
Mm.
around the neighborhood, and talk to people. That's one of the key. Talking to people to understand problems. If you don't, so this is also like one of the very, I would say, interesting fact. So
Mm.
I've mentored a lot of people, startups, not just from Indonesia but all over the world. Uh, Not only a few, but quite a lot that they have made something, but they've never spoken to the users. It's
Oh,
very amazing, actually.
really?
Even yeah. So make it a habit for you to speak to people,
Mm.
and that's how you can actually gather insights from everyday's sharing experience, say how do they live their life in a day or in a week, what problems matter to them, what kind of difficulties they find in achieving their goals, even achieving their life goals. Then you can start thinking of the solution, and then you start making it and then testing it with the research. So that's how we can be stuck in this field.
Right, right. Yeah, I think it's really insightful what you just said. And also, it's really very, very educate people, especially people in this group who just about to start in this field to really start investing more time in finding the problems and try to create solution, even you don't have any. So the way you practice in this world is just to practice on creating solutions, and just to like and when creating the solution, just to finding the right methodology on process by going right. But the problem now is, Mas Boris, most people, like when you're just started, and one the most feasible for them is just to create a visual explorations, because for people like in Indonesia, like this field in the US UI UX world, people are way more focused on the user interface, because it's so much easier to get a job in user interface rather than just really focus investing your time like creating solution, doing case study, all that things. And by just focusing on the user interface, you actually can make money from that, because you have like access to many clients who just need that user interface. Maybe they don't know about the importance of user experience, or they just care is to just about creating a good product visually. And it also affect about the culture in the group, right? So many people just do some exploration on the visual, while some people expecting more about that kind of approach on how we can identifying the problem, create solution, and that visual thing is just one aspect of the solutions. How do you uh, like about this problem in the nowadays among Indonesian designers? Not problem actually, is but how you react about these situations, this condition.
I think in general we need to always deliver something or even give more value than what was expected. So even though you're focusing on visual design, but it's always beneficial, it's always good for you to be able also to advise on, does this solve the right problems? Because then the client will see you as more valuable, not just as we call it pixel pusher, just doing the pixel, but then they will start seeing you as more like a partner, right? And they'll be like, okay, actually this guy is really good because he just didn't accept order or even instruction, but he actually challenged us, and I think it makes sense for us to rethink. So that's very important. So visual is of course important because that's where the surface is where the product meets the end users. So we cannot. I saw some people always like have like a bit negative comment on Dribble, for example, saying that, oh, this actually you just talk about visual, you don't talk about visibility. I think that conversation shouldn't be there. If you are a designer, you should also like say, okay, this is good, but then like what kind of problems are you solving? So that's more like constructive discussion, and the designer will say, oh, I'm actually just exploring, but exploring cannot be just, right? So when you explore something, at least you need to know what kind of problems you are solving. Let's say that, okay, I'm actually helping this because I'm making this because I want to help users to easily, for example, order or find food that is valuable during this COVID, for example. So there has to be like a reason before you explore something. Then, because once you explore just visual, for example, and you have very clear goals or even clear a simple statement of how this helps users, then you will start thinking more creative ideas, and it'll be more like structured, right? So first, like, still needs to be there the simple statement of problems you are solving, even though you are just exploring visual. And for people who, I would say, not anti-visual, but sometimes they just say, oh, you're just visual, you're not like actually how's the UX, and you don't actually explore how this is going to be built by the engineers. I wouldn't say like, I think you are I think it's too much, I would say, because like even if you're exploration, you should explore crazy design, right? So it's not the time for you to assess the tech feasibility. It's for you to explore what's possibly be done, what can be like the best way for us to solve the problems. Then only later you will discuss with the engineers. So for people who always like to say, when you saw a very nice dribble post, you will say, "Oh, this cannot be built." The designers doesn't understand technology. Then I think you should tone down that kind of comments and more of like, okay, what problems you are solving. And then if you have like front end engineers, you can start chime in and getting your thoughts on like, okay, this actually can be done through this instead of this. Then we have a very positive conversation. But overall, I would say that even if you are just in Gojek, for example, we have gone into specialist route. So we used to have generalist, full stack designer. Now we are more into generalist. So means we have a very specific role for people who are doing UX, which is product designer. We have people who are doing design system and visual and interaction. We call interaction design team. We are designer, which doing the UI copy. So UX writer is essentially designer as well. So the UX copy. We have people who do UX engineering, which is prototyping, and then making all of this. Basically prototyping. We have design ops, for example, who are really people who best at doing strategy process, like the facilitation. So this kind of different field still need the same design mindset, which is know the problems you are solving, and then you explore possibilities of solutions, and then you learn and iterate of your solutions. What's the best way for us to be better? So these three things still needs to be there, even though you're just saying exploring visual. But you can always go to this different route of career. You can be visual designer, which is just doing UI. I'm not saying just doing, but it's just the focus will be just be on the UI. But you need to understand the problem. So for example, in our interaction design team, when they come up with some visual design or component, they will for sure know the problems that we are solving. They are not just going to say this is because it's like the best interaction, the best visual, and based on best practice from Google, Apple, something like that. But they will always have like a very clear problem statement. This is because we want to solve this to make this process faster, making it easier for users to pick food, for example, from a list of 10 food using this kind of cards. So they have very clear problem statement. So even if you're just doing visual, I think it's important to have a very clear problems you are solving.
Okay, so you say it's still fine for people to just doing some visual exploration because it's the thing they are passionate about. That's the thing they want to be focusing on. Because at the end, we were talking about in the enterprise level, this job is about a specialization, right? People just specialize in UX writing, just specialize in the researcher, and also there's some people who specialize in the visual designs. But when you're doing visual design, you're also important to not just doing exploration, but also the reason behind it. And the problem is not only a big problem. For example, you can just tackle small visual problem, but you just need to state that in your exploration just to make people just to set you have more value rather than just doing explorations. That's what you say, Mas Borrys. All right, and what the thing that interests me most is when you say there's some people over dramatic this phenomenon when so many people only focus on visual exploration, just give a bad comment about that. The thing that they might don't know is even at the outside, this maybe we talk about some studios in Indonesia because our Indonesia people are very, very well known of its visual quality. For example, we saw some showcase platform like Dribble or Behance or even some design competition like Topcoder. We're actually really good on that, and I think that's something we need to be proud of. But what the problem is, people just saw it people just see this kind of peoples and agencies just doing a visual exploration. They're aiming on that, and they are thinking that by doing so many exploration, they think they can be like them. I think that's what the things happening right now among Indonesian designers community. But the fact that when I talk to some agency, like for example the top 3 or top 5 in Indonesia, and most of them are in Yogyakarta, some of them are also my friend. They have some methodology. So when they are have their client, they also not offer visual solution, but also they give advice, and even like
Yeah.
some of them give exact metrics on the what kind of outcome they want to achieve. For example, like some people ask about redesign on their landing page. Some agency able to like give exact metric on how I can improve your page visit and page efficiency, or maybe by how many percentage, maybe
Yeah.
exact number of visitor you can achieve by having that kind of candy candy tone or anything like. It's really interesting actually, Mas
Yeah.
Boris.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
according to you, like what kind of approach does the people who maybe externally they only like being seen as people who only doing visual, what is the best approach to for us, for example, like this what I want to know is some of the agencies still being trapped as the agency who only do visual, like what kind of the best practice for them to get more value from the customer. I don't know. It's kind
Yeah.
of difficult to answer, but what is your advice for them to scale up and have giving them more value to the customer, even they don't
Yeah.
able to have no access to do some research, don't have
Yeah.
access to do, because at the end, client budget is about doing visual things,
Yeah.
not more than that.
So that's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chandika is related to even if you agency or even you work in corporate settings.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, if not most, or if not majority of us,
Mm-hmm.
only limit ourselves to the role and the compensation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a staff, I'm not a manager, I wouldn't attend a meeting where people talk about the next big things, for example. That's not my scope. I was not paid to think more. I was not paid to, like give more value to the company, something like that. If you're a manager, and then someone asks, like, can you like try to initiate some or work on this new product, for example, and think of the ideas and something, and then you say, oh, I was not paid to do that kind of things. I think it should be the director who, thinking of the strategy. So I think it goes back to the approach of individual, where the goal should be giving more value. The goal should be benefit people, no matter how small the budget is. At least for us, if the company only pays us for the visual, at least for our own satisfaction, I should have done more research, for example, just to understand the users. And then when you present your design, then you will say, okay, so this might be a bit different approach, but that's what I always do in my career and in my life, that you always give more than people expect you to do. So you can say that, okay, you don't pay me for this, but actually we did a quick research and this is the findings. And this visual actually derived from these findings. So even though in this client, so that's just the thing as well. Like we always look for transactional relationship. We are not trying to build, we are not looking for a relationship building, right? So people just pay me this much, so I'm just going to do this. But we're not thinking about like, if I do more, even though this current client doesn't pay me well, I'm sure at some point people will find me valuable for this kind of skill. So the kind of things, and people sometimes like, if you do more, they will like, it's something like unexpected, right? So if you talk about product, let's say product approach, you will have product with features that must have. So that's expected. So let's say that I'm going to pay you 1 million to create visual design, UI. That's must have. Even though, like for example, you create some very nice UI, but you're paid to do it anyway. So I'm not going to be amazed. But if you talk about product, you have must have. There's something that it called could have, which is like things that not expected, but you deliver it. Then people will be delightful. That's like a
Impressed.
surprising effect. So let's say you're an agency, you say, okay, this is a visual, but actually we give you extra of doing research. But actually for our own sake as well, because when you do research visual, it helps you to design a better visual because you understand the users. Then you will have that could have factors. People are like, oh, I think it's very amazing. Yeah, like this agency is amazing because they do more. Okay, of course you can say that. Okay, that will not have a good impact because the client then will have a very bad mentality, right? They always expect you to do more. But actually, it's for us. When you do more, as I mentioned, then good things will start coming to you, either from this project or at some project where actually you're also like practicing your skills, right? When you do design, as an agency, I think you shouldn't be just doing visual. You should be like very, like I would say like a end-to-end design approach, right? So visual, yes, will be your strength, but then you need to know the problems you're solving. So that's something that needs to be, I think, in the mentality of any designer to give more, not just limited to what conversation do I get or what role do I have now. That's really limiting. It's really also limiting your potential to be the best you can be.
Also, if we talk more in the professional level, like that kind of initiative on giving more, like giving some recommendation, it's part of the leadership, right? So in the company, when you have that kind of leadership inside you, and not just executing, but also giving recommendation to the company, you can like get into ladder and just climbing to the more that kind of pyramid to the top.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay. I think that's very interesting topic, Mas Borrys, too. And I think it's really very beneficial for people, especially in this group, to really know about what's the next step for them, to really into this world, not only just doing visual, not only just doing exploration, but also thinking about the mindset of on how we are creating solutions for the peoples. Okay, now let's talk. We have some people watching right now, and I will open for some question that they might have regarding this topic. So, guys, if you have any question for Mr. Borrys, I would like to see.
Is it on Facebook?
Yeah, it's on Facebook. Actually, we have some comments already. I don't check it. So we have like 38 minutes ago. People just say, I love it. And there's a thumbs up. People just also give some highlights of your things you deliver.
The learning,
Yeah. Good morning, great people. Do more that. Okay, it's just like giving some highlight from your statement. Nice. Thank you guys for emphasizing some things so people will be more interested in see the whole video. Okay, Mas Borrys, so do you have still any other thing to say for our fellow group member in the XID group?
I got so many things to say, but but specifically for starting, I also like keep getting message from on LinkedIn, for example, asking how to build a portfolio. So like company Gojek, for example, will be interested to hire me. Again, first, like I mentioned, the steps very simple. Start identifying problems, the innovation, and then find the most important problems to solve, and then you go to the process where you do ideation. You explore so many ideas, and then see which one is the best to solve the problems, and you iterate. You learn how users interact and react to your products, and you improve the product. So the three things is important for any stage of designers, especially for those who want to start building portfolio. So following these steps would help. And because we are actually interested to see the thinking process behind your design. So you can also, of course, focus on visual, but how did you come up with that ideas of solution, right? So that's how we assess the designer's capability. We are very interested on knowing the process. So start practicing the three process. and I'm sure you can always grow to be the best designer.
Yeah, can you like mention some of the portfolio that people apply when they are applying for a job in Gojek, and you say it's the most impressive for you? What kind of thing they actually give in their portfolio?
So in portfolio, of course, mostly it's very interesting because quite a lot of portfolio, especially for design, is 30% visual and 70% text. It should be the other way around. So it should be 70% visual, 30% text. So you need to be able to convey the message in a short, in concise sentence. So that's why you only have 30% allocation for text. And also it forces you to focus on the key message that you want to deliver to the recruiter. So it needs to start with a very clear problem statement. How did you identify the problems? And then come up with the different way of exploring solutions. And a lot of things that really impressed me, they have actually very nice prototype. So we also expect, because it's not just about the process, but we expect it to have a very good end results as well, right? So the visual is very important. And some people even record the session where they interact with the users. So it's very simple video, but it helps actually to stand out from the rest. So where the rest is 70% text, some people have this 70% visual with nice video of how people interact with the product, with the prototype. So I think that's kind of resume actually one of the best resume portfolio. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Okay, so there is no questions. Okay, Mas Borrys.
Yeah, I think it's like a Saturday too early for people.
Yeah, it's too early, but yeah, it's actually it's a common things for me to have meeting at this time, maybe way more earlier, because I usually have a meeting with people in the state, like, so I usually wake up at 4
16
a.m.
hours,
Yeah, 13 hours
16 hours
difference.
different.
So 13 in Atlanta, so
13.
Eastern time.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Yeah, so people are usually surprised when I wake up at 4 a.m., but for us as a Muslim, it's a usual thing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is because I live in the village, so people really pay attention to the rooster every morning. Kukuruyuk, they are miss that, so it's always become my background music. But I don't know why the rooster is not like screaming now. Usually have so many.
I think there's a question, Chandika, on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
On Facebook, there's a question.
Okay, so from Zain Fatmi, from the developer point of view, there is a movement to build the product first quickly, release it to the market as soon as possible, and iterate from it. How do we balance that approach with the other side of movement that encourages extensive user research before even writing a single line of code to implement it? Oh, it's an advanced question.
Yeah, so I think it's the culture, right? So the culture defines how you approach building product. So I think at some point we have that in approach as well, building first and iterate. But along the way, we learned that we should make sure it's right for the customers, and then if it's right for the customers, it will also good for the business. So we have different approach, especially at Gojek. We always make sure that, so it's actually part of the design principle. So we have design principles, and one of the principles says that if it's good for the customers, it's good for the business. And in building this, it's not just about design or even just tech. It takes the whole company to agree on that principle. So it means like you need to have someone who champion this, a leadership role that can make this as a culture. So that depends. I work in the engineering driven company as well. At some point, they have this kind of approach where just release first. But then along the way, we learn that it's best to make sure. Of course, you need to balance, right? Like some company, if you talk about like a big corporation, I had a very, I would say, like a terrible experience where we just keep designing things for 2 years and never launch. So that's bad. But also, like, you don't want to be just like develop in a month and release, because then it's not going to be complete how you assess the feasibility of the product, because even the product itself is not worth for users to try. So you need to make sure that it's worth for users to try. Then it will be more fair for you to assess, for example, the feasibility of the idea, the feasibility of the business. So you need to balance. I think it needs to start from the leadership as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So balance between business and customer. So Zain, is that answer your question? All right, guys. Do you still have time, Mas Borrys? Because Mas Borrys is busy today. So tell me a little bit about.
Yeah, the event is later at my session is at 1 Jakarta time.
Wow, it's a very interesting topic. Building the Eastern Indonesia.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All I can do is I think this is enough for today's talk. I really appreciate your time, Mas Borrys, to giving us insight and advice. Hopefully, it's going to be beneficial for people, especially in the UX ID group.
Amin.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So thanks for watching. Hopefully, you guys like it, and stay tuned for another episode of English Talk. If you has any recommendation of who should I invite next for the guest of this event, please just message me or just comment in this live sections. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks so much again for the time, and good luck for your seminar today.
Amin.
Yeah, and thank you for watching, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye, guys.
Waalaikumsalam.